Yo, it's Chris from LaserLemming.com, and VR, virtual reality, as you may know it, is coming this year. 2016 is the year of VR. Now, Oculus Rift has been doing its thing for a year or two now. They've been in beta testing kits, really, where you could play early versions of the hardware. The official final hardware releases this year, sometime this year. And I'm sure there's actually a final date by this point. But Oculus, which is owned by Facebook, announced earlier this year or last that the headset is going to be $600. And people were like, whew, that is expensive. That is expensive, especially when the heads of Oculus, they said that the computer that you need to run this thing, when you include that and the hardware, everything is going to cost you probably, I think they said about $1,500. It was expensive. It's going to cost you a pretty penny. Now, Steam, Valve is the company that owns Steam. They have been working with HTC to create their own VR headset, also due this year, and it's called the HTC Vive. It was recently announced to also have a new price point. Now, Vive has been doing well as far as impressions go, because when it comes to VR, motion sickness is a huge worry, huge cause of concern, and apparently the Vive has pretty much eliminated it. So that's pretty impressive, and the thing costs $800. $800 US dollars. So the Oculus Rift, which people already really thought was expensive, is going to cost $600. I believe that comes with an Xbox One controller. The HTC Vive, being really heavily produced by Valve as well, is going to cost $800. It comes with the controllers, the fancy VR motion controllers. The Oculus Rift does not come with their fancy controllers because those aren't ready yet. So it comes with the controllers and these sensors that allow you to move in the room. So it's essentially the full kit and caboodle, but it's $800. That's a pretty high entry price point. And if you include the expensive computer that it'll need to run these games at a decent rate, this shit's expensive. It's not for your layman. Now, the only other big contender in this game that people are really talking about is Sony with the PlayStation VR, formerly known as Project Morpheus. Now, there's been some rumors that this thing's going to cost about $400. Now, if Sony was to look at the competition, who's coming out at $600 and $800, they might feel a little more comfortable coming out at a higher price point. Who knows? And if you think about the PlayStation 4, it is not a $1,500 computer at all. It's not an $1,100 computer. In fact, what it is it's a sub $350 computer, because the PlayStation 4 now costs $350, and Sony is most definitely making a profit on these things being sold. So you can assume that the PlayStation 4, which is a computer, does not cost Sony $350 to make. So if the Oculus Rift and the HTC Vive require a computer that is $1,000 plus, let's say, you can assume that the PlayStation VR is going to be running on much lower standards. And when it comes to VR, you're going to want at least 60 frames per second, at least, locked, minimum. So PlayStation VR is going to be definitely the entry level as far as hardcore gaming is concerned, because you've got Samsung, who's already in the game with their Samsung, I don't even know what they call it, Samsung VR, whatever. It's $100, but it still requires a Samsung phone, so it's just really a shell, I believe. But anyway, I digress. This is going to be interesting, but it's also going to be rough, I think. Even if Sony undercuts everybody with $400, Say the PlayStation VR is $400. That is still $50 more than it costs to buy a PlayStation 4 at this point. So, the PlayStation 4 is required for the PSVR, If you add those two together, you're still getting $750 before taxes. The Oculus Rift is already $600. So Sony is already coming out the game costing more if you have both pieces of hardware. Now, it's still cheaper than getting a dedicated gaming PC and the Oculus Rift or the HTC Vive, but shit is still really expensive. We're talking a really high entry level deal. This is high end right out the gate, and you're not going to get a lot of people this way. I know Sony is actually looking towards the future along with Valve and Oculus and Facebook, I guess you could say, but this is still very expensive. I don't believe at this point VR is going to take off the way any of these companies want it to until this shit gets cheaper. And really, if you are not very wealthy or even moderately wealthy, you probably shouldn't dip your toe into this either until, a couple generations into it. Because not only will you save money, but you will get a better product out of it. I can't guarantee that Sony is going to keep pursuing it unless the PSVR is very successful or VR is the inevitable future, but you can guarantee that more companies will continue to pursue it, unless it's just a total bomb, which, going by other impressions of it, a lot of people have experienced VR. I personally have not, but going by impressions of it, it's the next big thing. It's the equivalent of going from 2D side-scrollers to 3D games, like going from Link to the Past to Ocarina of Time. That's what they're saying. They're saying this is the next big jump. However, this costs a lot more. This is a much bigger hit to the wallet, and it's a much harder sell, because when it came to selling a 3D system like the N64, the PlayStation, you could just show that on a TV in a Best Buy or a Target or a Walmart. But with VR, it's a much, much, much harder sell, because you have to actually put a physical piece of hardware over someone's eyes and ears. And they have to be able to walk around, not feel sick, just experience it for several minutes to really get the idea. And that is not easy when it's a very lonely experience. It's very much a solo thing. So it's going to be a hard sell. I think this might be the inevitable future, but it's really got the odds stacked against it right out the gate. So wait. All I can suggest to you is, unless you're wealthy, wait. You're not going to get the best games out the gate, you're not going to get the best technology out the gate, and you're sure as shit not going to get the best price out the gate. So wait for VR. Let other people, let other richer, wealthier people do the heavy lifting for you. That's my thoughts. Share yours in the comment section below. What do you think of VR? What do you think of the price points announced so far for VR? Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.